Good morning, everybody. This is Dwayne Henry filling in for Neville James on Analyze This on WTGX channel, WTGX Radio, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands. This morning, we're going to have two guests. The first guest is going to be Kaiso Cares Inc., and they're going to be speaking about their cultural youth workshop. And then the second hour, we're going to have Love City Strong from St. John. And they're going to be speaking about the planned Cruise Bay Charrette, which is taking place on June 11th to the 16th. Before we have our first guest, Ms. Hodge from Kaiso Cares, just wanted to give you guys a little update on the stock market. So since you're probably used to hearing it daily from Neville. So yesterday, the Dow finished up 91.74. However, the Nasdaq was down 171 and the S&P down 16. The bond market's been taking a beating. Oil is up 90 something cents. Recently, we saw that the Saudi Arabia and the rest of OPEC has been cutting production. So look for your gasoline prices to go up in a few weeks to months, because as oil goes up, gasoline is oil is a leading indicator, and gasoline lags. So it takes a while to get to that point. But just keep an eye on those markets, and we'll see how it goes there. But in the first hour, we got Kaiso Cares Inc. They're having a cultural workshop from June 12th through July 14th. And our guest today is going to be Miss Hodge, Nikki Hodge. She's the executive director. And we should have her on the line. It's Miss Hodge here. Good morning, Miss Hodge. We're going to give her a moment. There you are.
Morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you? This is Dwayne Henry. I'm filling in for Neville today.
Okay. Okay.
But we're happy to have you. I was doing some research on your organization. I understand you have for-profit one and a nonprofit. And today we're talking about the nonprofit entity, right, Kaiso Cares. But if you'd like, please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about your entity before we get into speaking about this workshop.
All right. Well, thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me this morning.
You're welcome.
Kaiso Cares Incorporated. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. It's something that I've been working on for quite some time. How it came about is, for the most part, we started with our for-profit because we do provide entertainment in a few ways in the community. And with providing that entertainment, a lot of times I'm training the young ladies or putting them in positions where they can gain different knowledge and understanding about their craft as a way of providing a resource. In doing so, I would have a lot of parents that come to me and say, well, hey, I love what you're doing. Is there any way I could have my younger child involved? Now, as you know, via law, you can employ children under the age of 18, but they have to be 14 and up, and you kind of have to go through some protocols in order to do so. As such, it's very hard for me, the for-profit side, to create certain experiences for the younger ones that might want to partake. Mm-hmm. And as such, in developing our community, we don't always have, like, again, I said, the resources that we need to tie into the youth, especially as it pertains to culture and so for me, it was important to have an avenue where we can tap into the younger ones and give them experiences as well. But also, I grew up in Rising Stars. I come from St. Thomas, and I came up in that program. Mm-hmm. And what it did for me throughout the course of my life, it kind of structured me to discover the things that I am passionate about and not be so afraid to try new things. It put me in a position where I gained a lot of social skills. It was a safe place for us to grow and have certain discussions that we might not necessarily have in school or at home. I learned at the time when I was growing up, I learned skills like how to type. I never learned that in any other setting. I learned different arts. I learned storytelling. I learned, and it was so impactful for me growing up that I always felt like, it would be a shame for kids to not have opportunities like that. Now,
Absolutely.
granted, there are, different entities and organizations that do stuff, but I wanted something that was all-encompassing. I wanted something that could ignite a fire within our youth to do for self and adapt a do for self mentality. Because when we face issues here in our community, a lot of times we say, "Oh, the government." But there's so much that we can do for self as a community, including developing resources for our own growth. At the end of the day, this is our home, and if the pipe is burst in your home, you don't go to the neighbor's house and say, "Okay, well, over there flooded, I will come in your house."
I like that analogy.
You fix your pipe. And we've had a big hole in our pipes for quite some time. And, I could take knowledge, skills, ideas anywhere in the world, granted, but what great would that be doing for my home? I wanted to bring home a resource where we're bridging the gap and patching the holes and creating opportunities for growth, development, and also for raising the bar as far as what we bring to the table as far as entertainment in the whole scope of the Caribbean. We as now granted, yes, Puerto Rico is U.S. as well, but Puerto Rico is a huge Hispanic influence, and they already have their ways of doing things. They have their culture, they have their background, their history. I feel like as the main Black community in the Caribbean under the U.S. flag, I feel like there's so much that we can do. There's so much that we really don't tap into as yet, and all it really stems down to is a lack of resources. And I feel like if we create those resources and apply them into the community and plant those seeds, the things that can come from that are phenomenal. I've seen it for myself. I've seen it in friends. All the people that I grew up with in Rising Stars are doing phenomenal things in our community today. A lot of them decided to stay and plant seeds as well, and they're being way makers today. So the evidence for me is clear. I don't need convincing in terms of, what could happen, whether I get to live to see it or not. But I'm passionate about it, and I would really love to see, our culture grow and develop more, whether it's through for-profits or non-profits. I feel like just having resources in abundance is amazing. You can never have too much resources. So,
Absolutely, yeah. And, big up on that, the Rising Stars, because I came up in the Youth Commission and Ebonites traditions. I know we had a little rivalry back in the days when Judge Hodge formed the Rising Stars on St. Thomas.
My great uncle.
Yes, I was going to ask you, because I saw that you said fourth generation of Virgin Island on your website. And I said, but wait, Hodge is a St. Thomas and Tortola name. So, so I was getting ready to ask you, but then you volunteered that you were from St. Thomas and Judge Hodge. God bless him.
Yes. So when I was being put in the program, I actually didn't have a choice, because that's family protocol right there. You have to have that upbringing, and mostly it's because of the discipline, the consistency, the ability to teach you how to be a go-getter and, develop the necessary qualities you need to be successful in life. So for us, it wasn't a choice. You're going. And I'm grateful for that, because, like I said, it was impactful for my life. Even now, I still tap into friends that I've made, and this is when I was 9 and 10 years old. I have children that are 9 and 10 years old now, and this is still beneficial in my life today. So I could only hope to be as impactful. This is just me doing my part, and trying something new, and hopefully the community is receptive of that,
Right. And I'm pretty sure they will be, because I'm happy to learn about your program here. It's similar to what the Calypsonian Derby does with the junior Calypsonians in terms
Mhm.
of culture and the work that 10 Sleepless Nights has been doing for years with the young people in the
Yeah.
schools, especially at the complex and stuff like that. I want to let
Yeah.
the public know that your website is www.wisokaiso.com,
Correct. Yes.
WESOKAISO.com.
Yes.
Um, and you over in Princess, that new building by Eden Restaurant.
Yes,
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 we
yes.
are.
I'm very familiar
And that
with that
building is
building.
actually going to be a very interesting spot on the island because it's all local entrepreneurs that
Absolutely.
utilize in the space and the
Hmm.
aesthetics and the details and the quality that's been put into these build outs,
Hmm.
just to kind of create not just businesses but experiences across the board. I'm really excited for it because to me it's a planted seed, and you know, if we have more like it, I mean, it'll only elevate the community, you know.
Absolutely.
So
And then you're right there in the middle of this Princess St. John community, so the youth have access, the couple housing projects in the area, and then, of course,
yes,
the homeowners and stuff like that. So you're
yes,
accessible to,
yes, yes.
some of the most vulnerable youths. So, like, I see that coming out, it's ended up
Hmm.
quite well. I think I see that
Yes,
coming up.
that's the goal. I appreciate that so much. Yes, and I accept it. I accept
There you go.
it.
So let's talk
So,
about this cultural workshop, youth workshop. Whose idea was it? How did it come about? And then you could start talking about the different events.
okay, so the cultural workshop is the brainchild of myself and designed by Regal. Regal Christopher is designed by Regal. She's a really close friend of mine where we kind of lean on each other in terms of support creatively and trying to be impactful in the community. We kind of have the same vision and goals in terms of what we want our footprint to be and how we want that footprint, what we want that footprint to lead others to. So if you know, just seeing kind of the gaps in the community, we sat down and we said, hey, as creatives, one thing we always have a hard time finding is um, models, other creatives for aspects of things that might be outside of our scope that we might need to collaborate with. I remember I've been looking for drummers, cultural drummers, for quite some time. In talking with youths and their parents, a lot of times, they don't know a lot of the history, a lot of the culture, and the gaps between our generations are getting bigger and bigger. And I don't think we're realizing it. And when it's not going to hit home until they're of age to graduate, and you realize like they really don't know a whole lot past eating pate and food and stuff like that, or you know, this steel pan. And there's not a lot. Not to say that there's not a lot. I mean, steel pan is one aspect of the business, but
Yes,
there's so much more in our culture that we don't even talk about anymore because these things are kind of starting to fade away. I'm starting to
exactly.
see more storytellers. I'm starting to see, fire breathers and stuff. But other than, the and I want to say, I don't want to use the wrong term. We do have fire dancers on the island, but in the aspect of accuracy, that's not the Caribbean way.
I understand. Yeah, that tends to. I'm not going to
I'm
say
not
the
trying to step on
culture
any
that tends to
toes.
come. This
I'm
is
not
more
trying to
like a
step on any toes,
Polynesian kind of thing. I know what you're saying.
yes, yes,
Yes, yes.
and it's great, and I love it, and it's inviting, and it's exciting, and that's fine. But I feel like the importance of us having culturally accurate representation is necessary, and making sure that those things have an avenue to continue and live on. When I was growing up, I grew up heavily in entertainment outside of Rising Stars. My dad was a performer, and he would often take me on his trips with him. He played everything from every instrument except the horns. He played the keyboard, he played the drums, he played every steel pan, he played guitar. I mean, you name it. My dad was just versed. So it opened up a lot of opportunities for me to be exposed to a lot. And in going on these gigs and stuff where he would be playing out, he was in Awi band as well too. So I was able to see other things. I saw Diana of Caribbean Ritual Dancers and her girls. I grew up dancing with them after a while, but when I was a little girl, I grew up watching them dance, and that
Right.
inspired me. Oh, my God, I want to do that. I want to do that. So, had I not had those experiences, who knows what I would have been today.
That's true.
But, I almost lose my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
No problem. No problem. I'll come back to you. Let me try to transition you into. Okay, so you're going to have this cultural workshop, and the
Yes.
topics are first the Mokojumbi within, then
Yes.
art is the heart. Then the third week you have festive feathers. The fourth week you have Eye of the Beholder, and in your fifth and final week you have musical meltdown. Tell us about the Mokojumbi within.
Okay,
What's
so
gonna happen there?
the Moko within kind of taps into, technically we all have a Moko within. Moko Jumbis were here for protection. And it was usually something that was appointed within the community. So it's important for me, in order for me to really value something, I usually try to figure out where it came from, where it stems from, what it means. And as such, it's important in order for you to revere it and respect it. You might like it because it seems fun, but when it comes to these cultural industries, you have to make sure that the respect and understanding is there first. So we start off the week with that, with the history, the education. Mr. Willard John from the Guardians of Culture, Moko Jumbis, is going to be, that's his week, where he's going to kind of, expand on the history. We're going to have some storytelling with the Moko Jumbis. We're going to have some arts and crafts with Designs by Regal. We're going to be making Moko Jumbis. They're going to actually get to see Moko Jumbi sticks and kind of understand how it works. We're going to have some demonstrations where they get to try it out, and it's a very safe environment. And as such, it's not a camp. So I love that we were mentioning it's a workshop because it's a smaller scale, so everything is very hands-on. And ultimately it's so that they can get as much information about that focus for that week so that they can determine, is this something that I'm passionate about? After each week, there are opportunities for them to tap into these entities that teach these skill sets. I'm really just hosting the program,
Right.
but I'm tapping into the resources in the community for the people that have mastered these crafts and skill sets in order for them to bring the most accurate versions of the information and the training and the exposure to the children that will be participating. At the end of it, we're hoping that each child will be inspired in some way, shape, or form that is something that they can pick up after the workshop and continue to hone in on, whether that be Moko Jumbi or is it playing a certain instrument that they learned about, doing storytelling. They might decide, hey, I want to learn how to act in order to do live storytelling or something. Those things create resources, So, but that week for the Moko, that's simply what it is. The history, the understanding, and activities to go along with it in order to tie in all of the important details.
Oh, that sounds good, and I'm pretty sure that Willard John is not going to disappoint. When we come back from the break, we're going to take you to week 2, which is Art is the Heart.
This is the PBS Video app. Install it on your phone, tablet, smart TV, or other streaming device, and use it to access more of the PBS shows you love. But if you're looking for even more shows to binge like this, or early access to shows like this, then look for this icon. That's the PBS Passport icon, and it means that video is part of PBS Passport. Passport is our way of saying thank you to our station members. Donate to your local PBS station today, and one of the member benefits you'll receive is PBS Passport, which offers extended access to a growing library of new and favorite PBS programs. You can support your station and your community by becoming a member today. Visit pbs.org/getpassport for details. Watch PBS Passport anytime on any screen, wherever you stream. It's your ticket to the best of PBS.
The PBS NewsHour has a rich legacy of in-depth reporting and strong storytelling.
Only 4 people have sat in that chair before us, and the enormity of this moment is not lost on me. People turn to us because they know they can hear from trusted sources of information and news.
That won't change a bit, even as the faces behind the desk change. Good evening. I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Nawaz.
Weekdays at 7 p.m. on WTJX TV, Channel 12.
Got some batteries and 2 flashlights.
What's up, champ? I feel like you get taller every time I see you.
Yes, and we're back on WTGX 93.1, your NPR station of Virgin Islands. This is Dwayne Henry filling in for Neville James on Analyze This. And we're analyzing the cultural youth workshop that's being put on by Kaiso Cares Inc. from June 12th through July 14th of this year. We just spoke about the first week. Let's talk about Ms. Hodge is my guest, Nikki Hodge. And she's the executive director, and she is speaking now about Art is the Heart, which is the second week of this workshop. Ms. Hodge, talk to us. Yes, while we wait for Ms. Hodge to come back to us, I'm going to tell you, the Art is the Heart is explore several different art types varying from poetry, storytelling, and varying cultural dance forms like Caribbean fire dancing, quadrille, and bambula. The presentations and activities by talented creative entities such as Eliana B. Artistry and designs by Regal. That's going to be happening on June 19th through the 23rd, which is week 2. The third week, June 26th to June 30th, we have what's going to be known as Festive Feathers. During that time, you can learn about the history of Caribbean costume making, varying costume types and fabrics, its evolution and concepts, the history of Madras and gingham fabrics, and more. Special guests will include Laurie of Shop Nadiva, Shamari Haynes of Simply Sophisticated Fun Troops, Regal Christopher of Designs by Regals. Activities and kids include festival backpack and costume making, storytelling, poetry, and more. So, Ms. Hodge, let's pick up where I just left off there with the Eye of Beholder, which is week 4.
Yes. Okay, so Eye of the Beholder, we're going to be doing a lot of jewelry making, traditional head wrapping, and we're going to be doing bow ties for the boys, creative face and body paint. So just some of the creative and exciting ways that our attendees will learn about beauty as an art form this week. Beauty is an art form, and a lot of times we have issues in the community with how people view themselves, especially our kids. We want to teach them from young how to love and appreciate themselves, how to view themselves, how to respect themselves. And we're going to be using art as a means of doing that as well. We do have some face and hand body painting that we're going to be doing and exploring different techniques. Mm-hmm. We're going to be doing clay jewelry making as well as some acrylic jewelry making. We're going to have a few different people come in, as a matter of fact, so to do different art forms with them. And then we're going to have storytelling as a part of it, how Anansi made the Madras. That's a popular book that's going around right now, and a local Virgin Islander is actually the author of that book. So, again, tapping into resources and making sure that everybody has an opportunity to really inspire these children and just, if nothing else, show them that these things are available. Parents as well being able to see these resources, the books, the different entities that they may or may not be familiar with. So There's a lot that's happening at the same time while being able to pour into these children and, just show them, there's so much more to their culture than, sugar cane and Johnny Cake. They have a lot to do. People are saying Croy born and I don't know how. We have so much to do,
That's true. I think that they say when you compare the American nightlife style of Charlotte Amalia and Red Hook, I think people think that anything but that is boring. But we know that not to be the case. You said, I noticed you said, it's eye beholder, jewelry making, head wrapping, bow tie, creative face, and body painting, right? And you made it clear in your handout there that all activities cater to boys and girls alike. Explain to us how why this is gender neutral, and because somebody might say, oh, jewelry and blah blah blah, that's for lady girls or whatever. So talk to us a little bit about that.
One thing I've encountered on the for-profit side of my business, it's very, very much top-heavy with women. When it comes to the arts, a lot of times boys don't feel like it's an inviting space for them unless it's for them to play an instrument.
Right. Well, excuse me, but you see that's played out in the composition of the Festival Jupes.
Yeah, it is, and it's something that I don't know whether we're cognizant about it or not. But there's so much of the culture that guys feel like, oh, that ain't for me. That's for them girls. And it's not. It's really, really, really not. And I think we need to be more cautious or cognizant of it in order to make it much more inclusive. Like, for instance, I do cultural dance with my older girls in my organization. But I need guys too, and you're not going to be doing the same things as the girls. There's everything from drumming. Mokujumbis are heavily male, but that's also male and female. I'm a Mokujumbi. I did Mokujumbi. I did fire breathing growing up. I did belly dancing. I did a lot of cultural arts. I grew up under trainers like Snake. Snake used to dance on the Kantiki. He used to dance on glass and on fire, and much love to Snake. And he trained a lot of us that are doing these exotic cultural arts these days. Everything from limbo goes straight down. You don't see limbo in its natural form anymore. You might see it with a broomstick or something and go, hey, everybody having a bend down. However, you end up under the stick, you're under the stick. But that's against the rules.
Yes, of course, yes. You're supposed to dance your way under.
Yes, and backwards. And everything it represents something. Do you know that both Kaiso and the Limbo has the Virgin Islands is the pinnacle key point for where both of those stems from?
Right.
Did you know that?
Right. I had heard that actually before because of the West Indian, the specific West Indian tribes that came here. Yes, that was more in their tradition, so they developed more here than it did in the rest of the Caribbean.
Anywhere else in the Caribbean, that's correct. Kaiso, if you look up the word Kaiso, if you Google it, and you go on Wikipedia and find the meaning of it and everything, you read through that, it's going to mention the Virgin Islands specifically several other times. It doesn't really highlight many other islands, but Kaiso, Kaiso, and that's why. And that actually came to me. I had the business name something else before, and through just kind of trying to make sure it's right, I kind of stumbled upon that through my childhood experiences and just thinking back. And I remember growing up learning that Calypso is a derivative of Kaiso. Kaiso was what it was called when it first started, and it started with the slaves sending messages with each other through music and the sound of the drums and telling stories of what's happening on the different plantations. That was our form of communication in between plantations. It was also a way of healing. So that was, we talk a lot about mental health and stuff now in 2023. Kaiso was our mental health back in the days of olden, where, we use these things to uplift each other, to give confidence to each other, to cheer each other on. They would dance and everybody would chant, Kaiso, Kaiso, Kaiso. And you would just kind of feel the spirit of your family and friends around you as well as your ancestors before. It kept their spirits alive. That's how we made it through a lot of our hardest times.
Absolutely.
So everything that is our culture technically stems from Kaiso.
Absolutely. The perseverance, people speak of the hardiness and the resilience of Virgin Islands. It's this little place, and it's a testament to genealogical history.
Yes, yes, it is, and it's something that we should very much be proud of. But you can't really tap into it if you don't know. So this is me making sure that we know.
Of course, and this is very educating to all of us, and we really appreciate you breaking it down like this. Say,
Yes.
but let me ask you something. Now, it's still on the eye of the beholder. You talk about traditional head wrapping, but then you talk about bow tie making. Tell us why bow tie. Tell us why bow tie making is a cultural thing here.
So we're doing everything cultural, yes, but we're not alleviating the fact that, times change and we do have modern influences as well. This is us encompassing the culture and still providing creative ways to modernize the things that we do. Madras is one element that we have done that with grateful, and we've seen how much can come out of that. So in working with Regal for Designs by Regal, this is something that she's done several workshops with already, where she does the head wrap classes. She's done it with my young ladies to teach them, because we train them in everything that we expect them to either know or do. So we've done several classes already. Again, the aspect of it being deemed something that's more for girls, because guys don't wear the head wraps, of course, but we do dance quadrille. We do other things in the culture. The head wraps and the traditional head wraps all have significant meanings. Once you learn how to wrap them, there's different tiers of the points and what they mean. But trying to make sure that we're including our boys and inclusive of our boys. A lot of times we have things like prom and stuff coming up. There's several different ways that you can make bow ties with the madras or with different colors and tell a story while doing it. So here it is, you're still using cultural aspects to do something that's more of a modern sense. And naturally, we do have European influence anyway, so it's not far-fetched for us to do bow ties and stuff to tie into that as well, too. But we're doing it our way.
Good,
the Virgin Islands way. So.
And that's good, because that the youth them get to see, well, this is something totally foreign. You update, because culture is evolving.
It is.
That's one thing. Culture is not static, and cultures borrow from other cultures.
All the time.
All the time. That's the history. That's how socialization works. So people need to understand that culture doesn't mean that you completely block everybody else's culture out. But cultures borrow and incorporate bits and pieces from other culture, and that strengthens that particular culture.
And I'm happy to say that, because the week that we're going to be doing Festive Feathers, the way that we wear and adorn feathers for Carnival is not something that's unique to the Virgin Islands.
Right.
So if we're going to talk culture, that came from Trinidad.
Yes.
It's something we adapted and made our own. So that is something that we're going to be tapping into when we teach that as well, where it came from, where did we get it from, how did we make it our own, where are some of the first designers, and when we started making it impactful. And we're going to have Shamari come in. We also have Lori of Shop La Diva coming in. And these persons, they travel to Trinidad yearly, and check out, the different designers and really make sure that what we're doing is to standard. Because if you're going to do something, I believe, either do it to your best or don't do it at all.
Absolutely. So, that's the bottom of mind.
Yes. Exactly. It's quality. It's how you present to yourself. You never know who's watching, who's paying attention, or what the message is going to be. And I feel like each of us have a responsibility to not just self, but the community, to make sure that anything we touch is of great quality, because we're in a space where we're building our community, and we have been trying to rebuild our community, So, and building doesn't just mean schools and buildings and roads getting patched and potholes. No, it means filling in the voids in the community in terms of culture and experience. When people come here, they need to be able to say, oh my gosh, I saw this for the first time. I was introduced to that for the first time. And we have one of the most vibrant cultures. We're a melting pot, and we have Carnival 3 times a year. Where in the Caribbean do you see that?
No one else. No one
Nowhere.
else.
So how are we not the pinnacle of entertainment and experience? When you come to the Virgin Islands, you should always be like, wow. Not, oh, it's off season for Carnival. No, it's Carnival all year round. We just have heightened peaks of Carnival. But all year round, it's a party.
And you're right. And that's what I always say when, every year you hear the people from tourism over the last 50 years or whatever, or from, people in this, and they talk, you go to Sea Trade and they talk about, well, you got to develop, what's your tourism product? And I go, it's so easy on St. Croix because we probably got more preserved history here than the rest of the Virgin Islands.
Not probably. That's a fact.
Yeah, but we're not exploiting it. It's like I tell people that, I was in Frederickstead the other day when they had the fire at the Cane Field. And further up the road, I'm driving and I'm passing William and Punch Estate, right?
Yes.
And it was so dry down there that I could see the ruins from the road. Normally, you cannot. And most people have never been in it. It's a low dirt road. You basically have to go with a machete to go in there. But I've been in there when I worked at DPNR, and they would and they had the project scheduled. You would be amazed. And I took my nephew there several years ago when he came to visit from D.C. William and Punch, Estate Punch was the first estate burnt in the fire burn. And know that you go in there and the original charred buildings are still there.
Oh, my God.
Over 150 years later, it's still there. You can see the black charring on the buildings. Additionally, so that's visible proof of the fire burn. Additionally, they have an African burial ground, quite an extensive one. You go into Christiansted Cemetery or Frederickstead Cemetery, or Moravian, especially Midland, you could see some older graves. But in there, those were actually African. There's a huge African burial ground in it. So there's a lot of history that's here. And I know it's private property, but there could be some way that could be exploited to work into a tourism product, and other areas, of course, that we can talk about this all day.
Correct. And another aspect of that I wanted to add to what you're saying, all scattered across the Virgin Islands, they have these African baobab trees that we pass and we don't even realize that these were planted in the beginning when these plantations were founded. They used to sit around these trees. They would plant them. And they brought them directly from Africa with them when they came over on these ships.
Yes. Tamarind and baobab and mahogany are not native to the Virgin Islands.
No, they're not.
Those are seeds that the Africans brought with them. And I wanted to run back quick before we go to our break on the when you were talking about Trinidad with the feathers. Yeah. One of the reasons, not necessarily the entire reason, one of the reasons why feathers are big in their culture is because Trinidad has, because of its land mass and dense jungles and stuff, has in the interior, has quite a variety of fauna and flora. So there's a lot of birds and stuff you see there that you don't see up here. And bigger birds, toucans and parrots and stuff like that. So that's what's going on there. But we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to finish up with you on your musical meltdown and some other thoughts.
Thank you.
This isn't my problem.
It tears me up inside, but that all ends now.
You better own it. This is the moment.
You need to look for something positive.
Change is coming. It cannot be denied.
This is it. Is there like a healthy level of hope?
I want to make them proud by telling the story. You're not going anywhere right now.
This is the moment.
I'm terribly excited to be the anchor of PBS News Weekend. We have become known for independent, fact-based reporting. We're challenging the viewers to understand the world a little better. We present all sides of a story. We take the time to put them in context. When viewers watch PBS News Weekend, I hope they come away informed and perhaps a different perspective than they had thought of before. Good evening, I'm John Yang. Tonight on PBS News Weekend.
Weekends at 6 p.m.
When they learn something new and you can just see in their faces, it's such an incredible moment. It's those moments that are my favorite.
Good morning again, everybody. We're back. This is Dwayne Henry filling in for Neville James on Analyze This, which is on 93.1 WTGX, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands. We've been speaking to Nika Hodge from Kaiso Cares, Inc., and they're doing a cultural youth workshop from June 12th through July 14th of this year. Their website, www.wesokaiso.com. That's WESOKAISO.com. Number 725-9024. If you want more information, hit them up on the phone call or on their website. There's some really good stuff there. Ms. Hodge has been talking about her development from childhood to where she has an interesting story, and then she's also been talking about the weeks, which is the Book of Jumbi Within, Art is the Heart, Festive Fetters, and Eye of the Beholder. And now she's going to take us down to the last week, which is, it seems to be like everything builds up, and now we're building up to the musical meltdown. Ms. Hodge, tell us about that.
Yes, it most definitely is a build-up because this final week is going to be one for the books. Especially, like, music is near and dear to me, growing up in music and having such a musically inclined family. I feel like music is the heart and soul of our culture, naturally, you know, from the beating drum to the sound of the blowing of the conch shell, from where it started to where it is now with our own. I feel like, you know, the Virgin Islands, we have two genres of music that are completely unique to the United States Virgin Islands, and we do not tap into them in terms of marketing them to the world in the way that I feel like we should. I feel like as Virgin Islanders, we tend to hold back a little bit simply because in our mind, we don't have numbers. We don't have enough people. Mm-hmm. It's not enough of us compared to other places. And that mindset is literally the only thing that's stepping between who we are as a people and sharing it to the world. I feel like it doesn't matter how great or impactful you can be. If the world doesn't know about it, it's only going to be but so big. And I feel like our culture is something that's so vibrant. It should be shared with the world. It should be in Japan. Absolutely. It should be in Amsterdam. You know, it should be in all these different places. And believe it or not, it is in some ways, in very small ways, because Virgin Islanders are everywhere. True. I lived in Europe for a while. I have friends that are from right here in St. Croix that live in Japan, and I have one that's a DJ, a permanent DJ in Japan, and I've been on FaceTime and seeing how much they revere us as a people or our sound or the Caribbean sound, period. Like, these aren't areas where we have to convince people that we're a vibe.
That's
we're
true.
already a vibe in their mind, like they're in love with it. We don't have to sell anything. We just have to provide it. And if we tap into these areas and these places, just like places like Jamaica, we say they have such a huge influence. It's not necessarily just because of their size. Their history has a lot to do with it because of how they kind of infiltrated the market. You know, hip hop. I just learned the other day, hip hop as a sound, how it started, was rooted in Caribbean culture.
Yes,
It
yes,
started
absolutely.
with dancehall.
Up
A
in
lot
the
of people
South
don't know that.
Bronx,
So
Africa,
how-
Bambata,
how-
and those guys.
Yes, it's huge. And how big we are, as far as our people and our culture and our vibe and energy, you feel us before you see us. So why is it that we feel like we're not big enough to tap into all these other things, you know? Me personally, the States, I love it, and I get it and everything, and yes, that's our mainland, but I feel like there's a whole world for us to tap into and really spread our fire, Queen Mary style, you know?
Right. You know, glad you mentioned about hip hop because, you know, that actually, you know, it came right out of the Jamaican tradition of what they call chatting on the mic. You know, in the 60s and 50s, and that's why you hear hip hop, especially in the early days, they call each other MCs. That's that's directly out of Jamaican culture. They used to call the guys who used to chat on the mic. That's what they used to call them, MCs. You know, they never used to call them disc jockeys. They call them MCs, and that's why you see hip hop with, you know, the early hip hop. Of course, you know, we talk about KRS-One, Heavy D, who did a collab with Third World. And stuff like that, you know. So from the very, and of course, African Bambata, who had West Indian roots, you know, since the kids are so, you know, into hip hop these days, they need to understand the history of hip hop, which actually has roots in the Caribbean. But your musical meltdown, you're gonna have exposure to steel band drums. Who's gonna be doing that?
We have
if you know already.
players are gonna be coming in. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Abby Long Massacre. He works with our, he's actually a member of our organization, and we've been booking him for, you know, shows here and there. We're trying to kind of build that up as well too, because a lot of people don't know the resources that we have outside of the nonprofit. We have a booking agency for talent, so we recruit talent and we bring them in, and we put them in positions where they can make money from their crafts, as well as train and polish their crafts to be more impactful as entertainment. So this workshop ties into that greatly and heavily. So we're using all of our resources to make sure that we can bring an experience to these children. And they're getting experiences while they're teaching the kids as well.
Yes.
So he's going to be coming in. He's going to be bringing in some other players as well, too. They're going to be doing live demonstrations. We have a steel pan set up in the studio as we speak because we've been preparing. And it's I'm really excited about it because we're not just going to be playing, you know, traditional music. We're going to see they're going to see that, hey, pan is very modern, you know, and it's a sound. The sound from the steel pan can't die because no matter where you play it in the world, it turns heads. It's a feeling that's inflicted, and you walk into a place, it's just a different feeling than any other instrument. You can't help that, you know. So, and when you apply it with modern songs that you didn't even know the steel pan could embody and encompass, I mean, the opportunities are endless.
Yes. You know, it's really funny because the other day I was speaking to a good friend of mine that I grew up with, and he's the nephew of Greenberg and Te from 10 Sleepless Nights. And we were at a place, and I was telling a friend of mine's how when I was a kid living with them in the two houses over in Welcome, we used to go in the pavilion and pong biscuit pan, you know? And my friend is telling me, you full of it, blah, 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 blah. So I call Mr. Paris, and this guy, I'm going to call his name Roland Paris. He's actually the grandson of Joe Paris, and then also the nephew of Tan Greenberg from Thompson from 10 Sleepless Nights. And he happened to have drums in his car, and he brought them out and was playing them. and there was some
Wow.
music playing in the place, and he played along with the music. Everybody in the establishment stopped talking. I was listening to this guy, and when I told them he has never had any formal training in music at all.
You see that? And most of our musicians are like that. This is raw, natural talent. My father taught himself to read music years after he had been playing music.
Right. So, and I see, I gonna have to show up the week of the musical meltdown because you got my boy here, Positive Nelson, teaching how to
That's
blow
right.
a conch
You
shell.
starting off the week, going to the conch shell. You got to start from the beginning, from the tippy top.
Yes,
top.
absolutely.
That's the first sound.
Yes,
you know?
this is gonna be good.
That's how we're gonna be bringing it in. We also have Pojo that's going to be coming in. Now, with this musical meltdown, I try to encompass as many aspects and elements of music as a whole, anything that has to do with our sound at all.
Right.
So we have a few artists that will be coming in. Bugsy's going to be coming in. He's going to be, doing the vocals. We're going to have a DJ coming in. He's going to be helping to play some of the music as well, too, and to show that you even if you don't play an instrument, you could be a prominent DJ. We have people like...
that MC.
Yeah, or MC, exactly. And I have examples of each to come in. They're going to talk to them about what their experiences have been, how they got started, what inspired them, what keeps them going. We're going to talk about the good and the bad, what are some of the things that they wish they could see done differently, so that you never know who you might be inspiring and how it might bridge the gap with something else that we're dealing with and probably haven't even thought of yet. Right. But information is key. So that's what we're kind of trying to give these kids, an insight and perspective, and then, of course, they get to tap into people that they might say, hey, I remember you taught us so and so and so. How can I get started? How can I get some practices? How may I learn? That's what this is about. I'm really interested. You showed me something and it speaks to me. I want to do more with this.
Light the fire.
Yes, exactly.
You have to light the fire.
Resources. So how are you going to get the resources? That's like saying I need gas, but you don't stop by a gas station. We're constantly seeing the holes in our community and saying, hey, we don't have enough entertainment. Hey, we don't have enough cultural display. Hey, we don't have enough representation. But are we providing the resources to create those things?
Right. Yeah, you're right. And, and there's a lot of, let me take back the lot of, but there's some resources available because, even federal, the Humanities Council and Endowment for the Arts and other things. It's a complicated grant writing process, and I think that deters a lot of people. But there are people out there that are grant writers that need to marry up with these groups and try to help these groups. And let's say people should work for free, but they could work with them, and if you get a sponsorship to pay a grant writer so that you can that would bring money to your organization. Them kind of things that's how we need to work collaboratively on these different issues. Is one person that has expertise in this area, and even like you take like these nonprofits and stuff like that. One of the things with having nonprofits is you have to account it is very important because you have to maintain that nonprofit status, especially once you become a 501(c)(3). That's with the feds, and they're quite stringent in these requirements. But there's a lot of accountants out there or people that know a little bit of accounting. Maybe they're not working in the field right now. They might have had a degree and it might be a homemaker or somebody, or maybe that's the other. That could probably donate a little time to helping keeping these organizations together, because as somebody that worked at the Lieutenant Governor's office I was a general counsel there for 6 years, and I've seen a lot of nonprofits get dissolved because they weren't keeping up with the requirements, the annual requirements in terms of their income statements and that kind of stuff. And that's because they didn't have the resources.
Exactly. So it always boils down to resources. All the gaps in our community are resources. And we don't need the federal government or anybody's government to do anything. I think they have plenty to do as it stands. Let the government govern that.
Exactly.
As far as the community, we as a people, when it comes to our culture, that belongs to us. And yes, our people are who stand in government regardless. But you gotta sometimes separate tongue and teeth,
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I like that, separate the tongue and the cheek. Don't keep the tongue in the cheek for too long. That's good, but really, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, and hopefully some people out there would reach out to your organization and other organizations to try to see how they can help, and hopefully people take advantage of this this learning opportunity for their children, because the good thing is it takes up 5 weeks of the summer, and the kids out there, devil find work for idle hands, and
Exactly.
so we really need to make sure that we take advantage of all these things. So
And
once
now
again,
we're actually
go ahead.
also offering aftercare. So for parents that can't necessarily get out of work until 5 or 5:30, we've had some inquiries about it, and I was able to tap into some resources, and we're able to provide some aftercare hours for parents that would need it. So for those, and that's something I'm actually going to be putting out on the flyer as well too. So I know a lot of people have probably seen it, but they didn't know that that's a new addition that took place this week. We're going to be doing that, as well as I have a driver. So some
Great.
people, I'm trying. Listen, I'm a parent myself, and the struggle only gets realer in the Virgin Islands. As we continue to build, grow, and develop and deal with different changes, it gets realer. And COVID taught me the most about myself as a parent, as an entrepreneur, as a director in these programs. It was not easy. And however, everything that I'm doing, I try to consider parents and how they're affected and what they're able to do, because the parent, you only get great as what you're able to give. So if it takes away too much and you want your child to be a part, but hey, I don't know if I'll be able to because I'm over here tied up trying to pay the bills, I get that. You shouldn't have to choose between providing for your child and providing for your child.
Right, absolutely, and that's a tragedy, that especially if you're a single parent, whether a single dad or a single mom, that's always an issue. And then what I tell people, one of the fortunate things about me growing up is I had quite an extended family here, so. None of my nieces and nephews ever went to daycare, because there was always a family member that could take care of them.
Right.
Yes. And in today's society, that's not the case. Of course, we have a lot of people who don't have extended families here, and so they think, but it's very important to have that. But thank you so much for coming on today. I hope that a lot of people take advantage of your workshop that you're offering. And in 30 seconds, anything to wrap up?
Yes, be sure to look for us on the website, WeSoCaiso.com, www.WeSoCaiso.com. You can also reach out to us at 340-725-9024. That number again is 340-725-9024. Or you can hit us up on any one of our pages on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. And you can shoot us a message, but we'll get back to you at our earliest convenience. And everything is at WeSoCaiso.
Thank you very much. And we're going to a break now. This is WTGX FM, your NPR station, Virgin Islands.
The views and opinions expressed on Analyze This are entirely those of the on-air participants and do not reflect those of the station's board, management, staff, or underwriters.
My skin, think it's time I find my place here.
Fasten your seatbelt.
You're taking my breath away.
Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Amazing. Well, what are you waiting for?
You belong here. This is your home.
What is your sense now of the humanitarian situation?
This is making me emotional.
This experience I'm going to carry with me the rest of my life.
I'll always be so grateful for everything you did for me.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
Whichever way I turn, there's a trap.
Let's set this palace on fire.
She's to be married. She is not married yet.
It's never a burden to love or give. The mother is at the heart of everything we do.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport on the PBS app.
Man, it's lonely. Going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music.
The views and opinions expressed on Analyze This are entirely those of the on-air participants and do not reflect those of the station's board, management, staff, or underwriters.
Good morning, everybody. We're back. This is Dwayne Henry filling in for Neville James on Analyze This on 93.1 WTJX, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands. In our next segment, we're going to have some people from Love City Strong. I understand we have on the phone Miss Megan Enright. Good morning, Miss Enright.
Yes, good morning.
Yes. Welcome to Analyze This. And we're here to talk about what you're calling Plan Cruz Bay Charrette, which takes place from June 11th to June 16th. It's sponsored by Love City Strong, which is an organization that actually started out doing disaster mitigation and preparedness over on St. John. And I'm glad to see that you guys are evolving into a comprehensive environmental and planning organization, because part of disaster mitigation is effective planning. So you have a charrette that's coming up on June 11th to June 16th. You want to tell us a little bit about how you became involved in Love City Strong and what's your position there, and then we're going to transition into the actual charrette.
Sure, thank you. I became involved with Love City Strong right in our early days, right after Hurricane Irma, when we sort of came together as a group of volunteers and really just started addressing unmet needs on St. John in the aftermath of that hurricane. And then, of course, Maria came through a couple of weeks later and things escalated. And, the next thing we know, we're 3 months into a recovery and still doing this sort of work, at which point it became clear that this might be the kind of organization that St. John needed in a more long-term capacity. I don't think that in January of 2018, when we first, officially made bylaws and, put together a board and did all the things you do to become a nonprofit, I don't think any of us really envisioned that 6 years later we would still be in this space. But as everyone in the territory knows, recovery is still ongoing and residents still need a lot of support and advocacy. So I serve currently as the executive director of Love City Strong and have led our expansion into more mitigation work over the last few years, including disaster housing recovery, wind retrofit programs for residential homes, and projects like this that are more planning based and more future looking.
Oh, great. And you use the strong that came from before. I guess it's a term that's borrowed from some other places after the disasters or terrorist attacks that may have had. New York Strong, Boston Strong, and it's a term that people have taken to signify resilience and reserve to overcome a very disastrous situation. So you guys are doing and gals are doing a Plan Cruz Bay. Tell me about that.
So as many people know, DPNR recently launched the comprehensive land and water use planning process for the whole territory. And in the midst of some conversations we had regarding that plan, it became clear that perhaps St. John would need a little extra attention. I think most of us who live on St. John feel that way about a lot of things, but certainly in this case, Love City Strong felt like we wanted to invest in special attention to be paid to Cruz Bay and to Cruz Bay's future, because there's so much property in Cruz Bay that's owned by government and is either, still awaiting repair or perhaps not used as efficiently or completely as it could be. And St. John has really limited space. There's a finite amount of square footage that we have to work with, and we have really serious housing problems. We are not, we don't have easy access to a lot of government offices or government programs. And so when we look at the recovery that's happened, the development that's happened in St. John over the last, I would say, 20 years, I'm sure people would argue that it's been longer than that, but we've started to see development in Cruz Bay really drift away from residential concerns. And by residential concerns, I mean, like, you're coming to town, you're dropping your kids off at the library or Head Start, and you're going to the post office, and you're going to the store, and you're running your errands, and that should all feel pretty seamless in a community. And in St. John, it is not that right now.
Right.
So we really wanted to take some time and gather feelings and visions and, concepts from the St. John community about what could happen and what's kind of the ideal vision of Cruz Bay. And so the charrette is a 6-day process. It starts on Sunday with a community walking tour in the evening at 4 p.m. That begins in town, and that walks through the historic district and the rest of downtown and gives residents an opportunity to talk to the team in the places that they're talking about and say, this building, used to be this. My grandfather, worked here or built it, or, whatever the case may be. It lends a sense of place to the whole endeavor. And then we'll have a community meeting to kind of kick off the week on Monday night at 6:00 in the cafeteria at the Sproul School right in Cruz Bay. And in addition to that, we'll have a studio set up in town where the draftsmen and the designers will be from 9 to 5 every day. And that will be open to the public all week long.
Right.
So if you can't make it to one of the more specific meeting times because of work or family or other obligations, you can, at any point that's convenient for you from Monday to Friday, stop in and talk to the team one-on-one.
Right, and you could you can have a whiteboard, you could like doodle on it, and then the actual draftsman will try to formalize, for lack of a better term, your drawings into some sort of plan. I wanted to talk. You're talking about buildings, a lot of abandoned buildings or underutilized buildings, and also the restricted space on St. John. As you know, our delegate just introduced some legislation to restrict the expansion of the national park, which over the years has, I'm not blaming the National Park Service or anybody, but a lot of big landowners have actually deeded property to the Park Service, so that land comes off the marketplace and instead is now part of the park. And so there's definitely that finite land, that finite amount of land, but at the same time, there's still people that continue to cede land or deed land to the Park Service, thereby exacerbating the problem. There's some legal things you could use, conservation easements and other things, and keep your land in private hands, but control the development of it. As we see here on St. Croix, over where we have Annalee Bay, so to the side of northwest side of St. Croix, hugely undeveloped. It's almost practically undeveloped. The last development is Carambola, Davis Bay, and then it's just pristine land until you get down to Hams Bluff, several tens of thousands of acres probably. And recently, that owner actually developed a conservation easement. And so the government now is working with them. There's going to be some development there, but the government of the Virgin Islands is working with them to make sure that this is a controlled development. How do you see that kind of stuff, action working on St. John, in addition to the work that you're doing?
So I would lead by saying Love City Strong positions ourselves really as an amplifier of vocal voices on St. John. Certainly I, as a director, I've lived on St. John 18 years, but I'm not St. Johnian. So when it comes to land rights and land use, to a certain extent, I like to defer those conversations to others. I would say, I think that this particular event is all about potential.
Right.
And I think it can provide a lot of clarity and inspiration to St. Johnian landowners who are trying to figure out what the future of their property looks like.
Exactly.
I think it can offer some ideas about how you can build a legacy for your family and build income for your family, but also do it in a way that is addressing housing needs and business needs and diversifying the economy and making St. John a livable community for generations to come.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you on that, and I understand that to be your thing. But I think specifically what I was trying to ask you is, during your charrette process, are you going to have attorneys there trying to, explain to people, legal mechanisms they can use to achieve their goals on their land? Are you going to have, I don't know if you have any lawyer members of your team.
So the teams that are leading this process for us, Horsley Witten and Dover Cole and Partners, are also leading the comprehensive land and water use planning process for DPNR, and so they have experts, from a pretty comprehensive set of sectors. I think when it comes to the intricacies of Virgin Islands law, particularly with regard to the national park, those are going to be conversations that people want to have on a more targeted basis. I think this process is really to bring the community together, look at what's available, look at what's left, and say, here's where we've made mistakes in the past, or maybe we've done things that didn't feel like a mistake at the time, but in hindsight, maybe we wish we'd handled it differently. And here's the way that we would like to mitigate that possibility moving forward. One thing that leaps to mind is that the Sproul School in Cruz Bay is eventually going to move out of town. And that is a government parcel of property. And so unless there is a cohesive community vision for a space like that, we run the risk of it becoming something that does not serve the community of St. John in a meaningful way.
Absolutely.
And I think those are the types of conversations that we feel really strongly about. Certainly Love City Strong feels very strongly about future mitigation planning with regard to disaster impacts, hurricanes, rising sea levels. Cruz Bay is a seaside town, and there's a lot of things to be considered there. So I think we're looking at it from those bigger picture angles, and there's certainly opportunities to drill down in more specific cases, but we're hoping that this will just be the sort of spark that lights the fire for those conversations.
Great. On the question of, or rather, going back to the comprehensive land and water use plan, and you said your organization has been working with them prior to developing this charrette. What are some of the contributions that your organization is making towards the CLWUP, with the exception of this charrette? What other areas have you worked on with them? Have you been meeting with them and that kind of stuff?
involvement as an organization has been pretty limited to just this process. We really want to focus on the Cruz Bay charrette. We have talked to DPNR about and the Comprehensive Land and Water Use Plan team about the potential of maybe shifting whatever resources were allocated for St. John to enable another type of charrette for Coral Bay at a later point. But when it comes to the plan itself, I would say our engagement as a team has mostly been as residents of St. John, of the territory, who are participating much the same way everyone else is.
But let me ask you this then. You've, of course, looked at the plan, right? Your organization, not you personally. Is your organization satisfied with the current proposed plan, or do you anticipate some changes and stuff ahead of the charrette? Do you think that after the charrette there's going to be significant changes to the proposed plan?
So we intend to submit the charrette as a supplement to be considered. My understanding, is that the Comprehensive Land and Water Use Plan is still a fairly nascent process, right? We're kind of in the early days, and there's still a lot more work to do as far as stakeholder engagement and planning and conversations to be had. And I think these things are really iterative. When I went to the planning meeting on St. John, the first one they had, I heard, and a lot of the comments from the community really resonated with me. I think a lot of the frustrations resonated with me, but I also think that it's one of those situations where you really can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
And you've gotta allow space for progress and conversation and leave a little room for error so that you can come to a better result.
Absolutely. And this plan has been around for donkey years, right? This is not a new thing.
More than time for an update.
Yeah.
And I think that's at least on St. John, the conversation I've been hearing for years is it's out of date.
Yes, it is. Yes.
It doesn't speak to our current environment.
Absolutely
literally.
not. First, I'm an ancestral Virgin Islander, Crucian. I have cousins in St. John, and my grandfather was born at St. Thomas, and my great grandmother on Tortola. But I went to St. John the first time when I was 10 years old. It was a great experience. Went to Annaberg and all over. My class had went and camped out. But I learned so much then, and Cruz Bay was so much smaller. I was on St. John maybe just before the hurricanes, and you would be amazed at how Cruz Bay especially has developed. And even in Coral Bay, when I worked at the legislature, there was a big plan for a huge marina development over there that, as far as I know, it's still kind of in limbo. But the island has really, really grown. Even to, I remember I was at DPNR with the Serenusa, Siren USA, however you want to pronounce it. The thing where there was the big thing was whether it was 4 stories or whether it was 3 stories and a mezzanine. And these are the kind of hand wringing we're doing on St. John, is what I'm saying. So the work that you're doing here definitely leads into better planning, better development, and it can only be appreciated. I just hope that all if they can, but as many St. Johnians come in as possible and really give their ideas and stuff like that. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back. We have Megan Enright from Love City Strong. She's executive director, and she's talking about the planned Cruz Bay charrette. That's on from June 11th to June 16th. Please go out and do your input. You're listening to WTJX 93.1, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands. This is Dwayne Henry from Neville James. Analyze this.
VI case files. Thus far, it's been a resounding success. We've been receiving tips on those old cases, those cold cases that are going to give us the opportunity to close some of those cases and bring justice for those victims and also to their family.
I want to know who killed my daughter. Looking for somebody to say something about what happened, you know? I want to know what happened to my daughter.
20 years. I am going to wait.
His survivability after being shot that amount of time was little to none.
And when they got there, they found this scene.
This area would be known as a hot spot. On the day of the shooting, clearly, there would have been unobstructed view, especially from the top floors.
Catch new episodes of Virgin Islands Case Files every month on WTJX TV, Channel 12.
We care about things that affect the lives of every American.
We are there at the front line
to get to the heart of what really matters in every issue.
This country has not seen this in 80 years.
This extraordinary moment in American history.
You're making such a huge impact.
Trust is at the heart of what we do.
A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's scary that it can be put into anything when we can't even see it or notice it.
Good morning. We're back. This is Dwayne Henry filling in for Neville James on Analyze This. And we have here in our second hour Planned Cruz Bay. And they're having a charrette that's being put on by Love City Strong organization. We have Miss Megan Enright, who's the executive director, on the line here with us. And she's telling us about Love City Strong, its development, what they're trying to achieve with this charrette, and etc. So I'm going to go into a little bit about, you could break down a little bit more of the mechanics of how this charrette is going to take place. You're going to have a design studio, and I've been to charrette, so that's a great idea. Interactive workshops. Talk about those for a minute. That's what Joe Blow walking in there can expect to hear. Let's see.
Sorry, I didn't catch the first part of that. Can you repeat yourself?
I'm sorry?
I didn't catch the first
part.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Repeat it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted you to drill down on the mechanics of the charrette. You're going to have a design studio, a series of interactive workshops, meeting and planning sessions. If you could just tell us what those are going to look like a little bit more specifically.
Yeah, so the studio sessions, there's sort of two different sides of that. There's the open studio, which anyone can kind of stop by anytime and talk to a member of the charrette team, and we can talk about your vision, what's your relationship to St. John. Certainly we're here to hear everybody's opinion, but we want to know who is of St. John, who is a permanent resident, who's a long-term resident. What is the scope of your relationship to the space? And so that interaction may take different forms depending on who walks in and what they want to talk about. There will also be several technical sessions that are scheduled, and we're doing more specific targeted outreach for those. That'll be regarding things like preservation of culture and arts and resources. There's one for natural resources that'll involve the land particularly and the coastline. There's one for, construction and housing for contractors and developers who are interested in that type of a conversation. So we are trying to target specific audiences for specific conversations, but also leave enough space for anyone who wants to come in to have those conversations. Love City Strong's particular outreach at the moment, as far as getting the word out, in addition to doing your show and our social media, we're also reaching out directly to the seniors in the community to make sure that they're aware of this opportunity, and that they're aware that if they need transportation to get to the event at any given point, that we can help them arrange that. And so we're really trying to cover as many bases as possible within the St. John community and get that group, really the St. Johnian voices, to come out and be heard.
Right. Well, what are some of the topics you're going to have in the meetings?
The charrette itself covers everything from stormwater management to traffic flow to pedestrian safety and pedestrian areas, to what are the spaces that we need that we don't have. A lot of conversations we've had in the run-up to this event have revolved around the fact that we don't have enough green space.
Right.
Since the modular units of Stroud School are on the ball field there, it's really cut in half our play space for kids. So that's part of the conversation. Some of the buildings that are sitting empty and maybe don't have a specific vision for them yet, like the old Stroud Annex.
Right.
What's that going to be in the long term?
Okay.
So it really, just about anything that anybody wants to talk about with regard to the plan and the vision for the space in Cruz Bay is on the table.
So it's basically like a open mic, if you will. Because it's all about the community.
It is. And I think a lot of times when we have town halls on St. John and one department or another comes over, we're starting to see a shift in this. But traditionally, you come over, you have your town hall, everyone's trying to catch a boat back to St. Thomas.
Yes.
You're looking at maybe 2 hours tops. And that's just not practical for everybody to access it, right?
Absolutely.
So we're hoping that a full week with lots of opportunities, lots of different formats for engagement, is going to make a difference in the numbers we see regarding turnout.
Okay, and then the interactive workshops. What's that going to look like?
So the studio is fully interactive, and that'll be like anytime anybody comes in, you can talk to a designer, tell them your plan, and they can work on drafting it up for you kind of while you're there.
Right.
The Monday evening event will probably feel a lot like the comprehensive land and water use planning meetings that have just begun in the last several months that people may have attended, where there'll be maps, there'll be facilitated conversation. What do you see for St. John in this area? What do you envision for St. John in this area? If you're a young person, what would you like to see St. John become when you grow up? I think that is a more strongly facilitated conversation, whereas the studio is much more casual and kind of freewheeling.
Right. Are you guys going to allow for public comment? Can I go online and suppose I'm a St. Johnian, but I'm off island or whatever, and but I still want to put in my 2 cents.
Certainly, all of that feedback is welcome. I think, we don't really have a specific vector set up for that at the moment, but, we do have a website, Love City Strong's website, which is receptive to all of that feedback, and we can pass it along to the team. If anybody has any specific feedback they want to give and they're not able to be here in person, calling the LCS office or emailing me is a way to do that. And we're open to all of the St. John diaspora.
Great. And you're available at Megan at lovecitystrongvi.org, or you could go to
Yes.
the website lovecitystrongvi.org and send a message to them there. And there's info@lovecitystrongvi.org. You could, if you want to walk in there in Ineide Pond, number 5000, and their numbers.
We're right across from Starfish Market. For
There
anyone
you
who's
go.
looking for us.
And that's 340-714-7744. As we begin, I want to continue a little bit more with the how, you say after the charrette, the planning team will return to their home offices to revise the plans, visualization, and produce a draft document. What is the time space, the time frame you have for after the charrette to put all that stuff together? Because I'm pretty sure you're going to have a huge amount of data and information.
Yeah, the goal is
August.
like mid to late August.
Okay.
So it's a fairly quick turnaround for the amount of data that we expect.
Yes, that's an ambitious schedule, I would think. So good luck on that one. but
To be totally honest, as we get into late August, September, Love City Strong is pretty preoccupied with hurricanes. So I was selfishly hoping that we would be able to get it done. We're going to do the best we can.
Yes.
And I have faith in them.
And then don't forget, next month you have Carnival, so you got to take 2 weeks off of that.
How could I forget?
So subtract 2 weeks there, and we'll think. Let me ask you, just some general stuff over there in St. John. Stormwater management. St. John is extremely mountainous, and with all these developments on the hills and stuff like that, how, in your experience, how has this stormwater runoff issue been managed on St. John?
I think we have had some projects in the last couple of years that made some inroads, but there's still parts of Cruz Bay that flood in any heavy rain, and being as small as it is, any flooding in Cruz Bay really shuts things down. I think, we have that area right by the barge and the tennis courts that floods pretty constantly. And, they've done some mitigation work out front of the marketplace where our office is that has mitigated a lot of that flooding. But, with heavy enough rain, it's still going to happen. I think what we'd like to see is, what more can be done, right? I think a lot of, and this isn't just a St. John thing, I think it's territory-wide.
True.
It's a matter of being kind of creative and leaning forward into the problems that we're facing and thinking, this is our problem now. What's that problem going to be in 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years?
Yes.
Right? The rain is going to get more intense. This is what the meteorologists are saying. This is what the climate research is saying, is that we're going to get more periods of intense rain, but between it's going to be drier, so we're going to have more runoff.
Yes.
And so I think that, there's a lot of different types of mitigation. Do we need holding tanks? Do we need to be capturing more of this rainwater runoff and saving it in cisterns? Do we need to be rethinking the paved areas of Cruz Bay and looking at more green space that's more absorbent, that's going to soak up some of that water? There's a ton of research out there, and there's a ton of solutions out there, and I don't think that we need to really reinvent the wheel. I think we just kind of need to look at what wheels are out there. What's the latest model of the wheel?
Yes.
And apply that.
Yeah. And particular, I worry not just about the flooding on land, but also the runoff into the oceans. St. John has the best beaches in the Virgin Islands, and if you're going to have all this development and all this runoff, eventually you're going to end up with a lot of turbidity, and the beaches are not going to be as beautiful as they are now or used to be. So we speak about in Cruz Bay and stuff like that, and then there's a lot of variety of things. There's pollution because stormwater has household chemicals and stuff in there. So I know you guys have a recycling project over there. I forgot the name of it.
It's Island Green
Island Green, right,
birds.
right.
Yeah, they're amazing. We love them.
Yes, and that's what, yeah, and so that's what I'm thinking in terms of the part of this charrette. You know, people become more aware of environmental answers to solutions to a lot of these environmental questions that we have or problems that we have, which includes the runoff. And you can, I mean, being such a hilly island, you're gonna have runoff anyway. Yeah, you can capture some of the water, but some of it is still gonna run off. But the idea is to make sure what runs off is relatively clean, and that it doesn't pollute our beaches and our waterfronts.
Yeah, absolutely. Those natural resources are, you know, the heart of St. John. You know, the people and the natural beauty are what makes St. John so special. And
yes.
So we want to, through this charrette, protect both of those things. Protect the people of St. John and the place of St. John, and preserve it in a way that is resilient and sustainable for the community.
Absolutely. That's what I. You know, I'm looking at the picture of the ferry coming into to Cruz Bay from St. Thomas on your website, and it's such a beautiful shot. And like I said, I haven't been over there in about 4 years, but I gotta get over there. I can't make it for the charrette, obviously, but I gotta get over there and see what's going on over there, because St. John is absolutely beautiful. And you know, if it's St. John is almost like the last stand in terms of development, or overdevelopment, if I may say so, in the Virgin Islands. If we, you know, one of the things is, and St. Johnians will make that decision for themselves, whether they want to be another St. Thomas or whether they want to you know, preserve the St. Johnian uniqueness and that have made them so special. So like I'm saying, I'm hoping that a lot of people come out, you know, especially the ancestral population, you know, because a lot of the land is owned by ancestral St. Johnians, and that's why I was talking about stuff like conservation easements and you know, like, you know, you could sell your land or lease your land, but you could control what happens on your land, you know, by having these covenants and easements. You know, you probably guessed by now I am an attorney, so that's why I keep going to yes, to asking, you know, what are the legal solutions to some of these things. I also worked at DPNR for 5 years as their attorney, so I'm very much the environmentalist. And so,
I think one of the things, you know, I should point out about the team, you know, is that we do have my friend and colleague Kurt Marsh, who's an ancestral St. Johnian. He's on CCM. He's involved with the Historical Society, and he is a part of the charrette planning committee. So from the beginning of this process, there has really been an eye towards ancestral St. Johnians, native St. Johnians, what that vision is for the future, but also a lot of looking back at where did St. John start, where did it come from, and what have we maybe lost, and therefore need to kind of keep in particular mind as we move forward. Like what's the history of the historic district? What's the historical significance of particular buildings? Because we do have on St. John a very different physical history as far as infrastructure and architecture than St. Thomas and St. Croix. So it's an interesting and very different conversation than if you're in Christiansted or if you're in
Absolutely. St. John, you know, from when I first went there was more homely and you know, it was like a village. And at East Cruz Bay, now you're seeing it becoming more of a town and a city. But we'll be back in a few minutes after we take this break, and we'll wrap up with you. And you're listening to WTJX, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands, 93.1. This is Dwayne Henry, filling in for Neville James. Analyze this.
different about you, a new brightness in your eyes.
Welcome to the Hotel Portofino.
How utterly charming.
Something is coming, can you feel it now?
My dreams have been invigorated.
We like stories that are going to elevate us.
What is your sense now of the situation?
They gave us possibilities.
This is the opportunity to share my recipes.
There are heroes everywhere you look.
You're going deep into the heart of America.
The Holocaust is a story that Americans have to reckon with, too.
This is pure exploration.
Wow!
I want to spend the rest of my life with you.
So you can see all sides of the story. Depend on us for coverage from across the globe.
Weekdays at 6 and 10 a.m. on WTJX Business.
What's time for dinner?
Donating pet food can keep families together. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Yes, good morning. We're back. Dwayne Henry filling in for Neville James on Analyze This. We have our guest from Love City Strong, Ms. Megan Enright, who's Executive Director. She's speaking about Planned Cruise Bay, which is a charrette that's being held from June 11th to the 16th, 2023, over in St. John in Cruise Bay. And the charrette is about the future of Cruise Bay. A charrette is a community a community event where everyone is asked from all walks of life to come in and give whatever ideas they want towards the development of an area. The last famous charrette, if you could use the term famous, I remember was held several years ago in St. Croix regarding Frederiksted. And that resulted in some changes to the waterfront. The development of the Frederiksted waterfront, and also to the what's happening at the Polly Joseph Stadium. So for those of you who's never been to a charrette, the St. Jonians, and you don't, this is what comes out of this. It's not just talk. We hope that all of this will be put to use. I want to ask you, Ms. Enright. You talk about the plan will be based on community input, address opportunity and challenges to improve connectivity, pedestrian safety. I like those two. I like that. Can you talk about Cruise Bay and walkability? Is it a walkable town? I know it might be tiring if you're walking for a cruise ship, especially we're used to the flatland. But how do you see Cruise Bay in terms of walkability?
I think we could do better as far as walkability. It's pretty small. Our sidewalk situation isn't super consistent. It can be a little hard to navigate for our seniors or anyone with any mobility challenges. It's certainly not particularly accessible. And all of that, to a certain extent, it is a small town. It is constrained by space. So there are limits, but I think we can do more to make it more walkable. And I think talking about the flow of traffic and the reality that we have more and bigger vehicles on St. John than we've ever had before.
Absolutely.
And it's just not flowing well from a traffic perspective. And so I think that also makes it less safe for pedestrians.
Absolutely.
I think we're fortunate not to have more accidents, but better to think about it now when we're still in that position than down the road, if it starts to become an issue. I also think that when I think about walkability for Cruz Bay, it's a matter of walkability when it comes to residential needs, right? So if you're coming to town, I hear from Human Services that they're getting ready to start work soon, I hope, on our Head Start building in Cruz Bay. So Head Start, let's assume that gets repaired in the next year or so, next 2 years. The library, DPNR is doing a ribbon cutting on the library next Tuesday. Those two facilities are right next to each other. If you come down to town and you drop off your child at the library or at Head Start and you have errands to run, there should be space for you to park your car. You should be able to walk around Cruz Bay and run your errands, and it should be an efficient and safe and enjoyable experience. I think right now what we find is if you're in St. John, if you're in Cruz Bay, it's impossible to park, whether you're a resident or a tourist, but as a resident doing the things you do in day-to-day life that are critical. It's impossible to find parking. It's, when you do find it, it's limited, and so you're constrained by time. You're in a rush. You're stressed out. It's congested in town. I think it's not right now a town that's designed to support residential priorities. It's a town that is primarily catering towards providing a visitor product, which is understandable from the perspective that is our main economic driver at the moment.
Right.
But I don't think in the long run that's a sustainable or desirable situation for Cruz Bay.
I totally agree. I just wanted to hear it from a St. Jodian. I absolutely agree. And it's such a beautiful town, but getting around it is and like you said, now with everybody's got an SUV, I don't know why, but, it could be dangerous. I'm really surprised, knock on wood, that we haven't had worse. I know there've been fender benders and stuff, but I'm really glad that we haven't had worse. And I'd like to see that. That's one of the things I'd like to see really come out of this charrette is people saying, "Hey, well, let's, of course, it's whatever y'all want to do over there, but." I'd hope to see more, when you're in town that you could walk around and get to places quite easily and without too much of an effort and enjoy whatever little green space and parks that we can fill in there. People always think when you talk green spaces, they think, some people say, it's going to be a central park. We have in Christian said the Olympic Park, which it's not even a tenth of an acre. It's square feet, but it's probably the most beautiful park in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
Right.
Every time I'm in Christiansted,
yes.
I'm so envious. You guys are so beautiful over there, and you have such great space.
Yes, it's totally green. The grass in it, it's absolutely beautiful. And I remember growing up as a kid, going there after school at Pro B. Lawson and stuff like that. But if St. John can do little things like that, build small parks like that, and that the people can enjoy, and that will enhance the beauty and also the environmental resilience of the town, in terms of
I think that
runoff and stuff.
I think that it's also a matter of having vision to think of the bigger shifts too. A lot of people will remember when the car barge came into Cruz Bay, into the creek, and dumped out right in town. You got off the car barge and you were in Cruz Bay.
Right.
And it was a nightmare every time the car barge unloaded for the last few years.
Yes.
The barge was there, and then the pond opened up and they built the new barge facility, and it was touch and go. Like, that's a lot of change, and how is this going to work, and is it going to make my life harder? And I think everyone would agree that it's a much more seamless process now.
Yes.
And
it was
so
a mess
the
before.
Congestion coming into Cruz Bay on the ferries, and how could it work? This is how it works now. This is how it's always worked. But what else could it look like? And those are the kind of conversations too that I think will be really fun and interesting to have. Is problem solving and strategic thinking about the challenges we face and the resources that we have, and what are the strengths of Cruz Bay? What are our best assets, and are we taking advantage of those, and are we lifting them up?
Yes. Okay. So now the plan. You said you're going to include analysis and before and after visualizations and an implementation strategy. As this is going to, do you have plans to say put some of the information during the charrette and shortly after the charrette on your website that people could see where this is going, like some of the visualizations, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be as transparent about the whole process as possible. You know, there'll be blog posts.
There you go.
Kind of at every stage of the process on our website with pictures and new information. And I think what is really important to me and to the organization, and I think will make a big difference for St. John, is for this process to be as public as possible, right? We want as many people to know about it, to hear about it, to see the images, to see the process as possible, because then there's no way that down the road somebody can say, oh, I didn't know anything about this.
Right.
You know, I don't recognize this as a plan.
Oh, they run it. They went and they run it over us and this kind of stuff. And you know, there's always going to be somebody that's going to say, I didn't have any input. They rammed this thing through. It's not my thing. It's not the people's idea. So I'm glad that you're really trying to keep it open to everyone to make sure that this is, you know, not just transparency, but this is actually what the people want. And that's the most important thing. You know, do you have anything else you want to tell us before you go?
You know, I think we've covered everything. I would just add that I'm personally very excited about this process. You know, we do a lot of work at LCS that's very intense and can be difficult. You know, recovery is hard for everybody, and it's nice to sometimes have a project like this that's just about possibility and the best of what St. John has to offer. And I think that, you know, it's going to be great to have everybody come out and spend the week talking about the future and what's possible.
Great. I'm excited. And of course, you know, I didn't tell you, I'm familiar when you guys first started out, you know, with Bloomberg Philanthropies and stuff like that. I was working at the legislature at the time. And so I'm very familiar. I had meetings with you guys. I'm very familiar with the work you do. And I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for really engaging the local population with this charrette, you know, because too often you think that people come from outside and impose things on you. And that could only happen if we let people do that. So I'm glad that you're not of that, your organization is not of that ilk, and that you're actually trying to engage the population. So Megan Enright, thank you again. Your email is lovecitystrongvi.org. Your office is in Indian Pond at the in front of the marketplace. Your number is 340-714-7744. And there's another email is info@lovecitystrongvi.org, or just go to the website lovecitystrongvi.org. Once again, you're having a very important planned Cruz Bay charrette. It's going to be June 11th to the 16th in Cruz Bay at your offices. Everyone, please try to go there. St. John is for several days. You know, find some time, go out there. I know they're going to have long hours. So if it's after work or before work or on a lunch period, you could go for 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long it takes for you to give some input or to begin to understand what's going on in the over in St. John and where you're going to go with this. So once again, thank you again, Megan, and best of luck. And we'll be checking back in with you guys after the charrette to see how it goes.
Thank you so much. And next time you make it to St. John, let me know. We'll take you around and show you some of the work.
I will absolutely call you.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Okay, people, that was Megan Enright from Plan Cruz Bay, or from Love City Strong again, with their Plan Cruz Bay charrette, which is going to be from June 11th to the 16th in 2023. Let me tell you what's going to be happening on Channel 12 tonight. Beginning at 7 o'clock, you got the PBS NewsHour. I remember when I was a kid, they started out as the McNeil-Lehrer Report. Then it became the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour. Then it became the Lehrer NewsHour. and now it's just called PBS NewsHour. But great informative news show that's not commercial and with excellent analysis. Beginning at 8 o'clock, they're going to have Fire on the Hill, and that's exploring how 3 black cowboys in South Central LA found purpose and freedom in the cowboy style. I'm sorry. I read the wrong one. It's the Ken Burns National Parks. Renowned producer and director Ken Burns. He's going to have the national parks exploring the beauty and grandeur of a nation's magnificent national parks from Acadia to Yosemite. So hopefully you'll see the Virgin Islands in there also. That's the Ken Burns News Hour at 8. Then that's going to continue until 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, there's going to be Breakthrough, which is Take to the Skies with the Dreamers, whose work give humans the ability to fly. And the end of the evening at 11 o'clock is Amanpour and Company with renowned news person Christiana Amanpour. So that's on WTJX tonight, channel 12, and that's your PBS station. There's some other information that we're going to put out here before we go. Tomorrow, we're going to be having from 8 to 9 in our first hour. We're going to have My Brother's Workshop. That's the organization out of St. Thomas that teaches skills to at-risk youths and provides entrepreneurial training and opportunities for them. I'm not sure if they still have it, but they had branched out to St. Croix several years ago, and I hope it's still a thing. Then also at 9 o'clock, we have Vernon Arujo, which is the King of Wing, and that should be an interesting hour tomorrow with Mr. Burr. Earlier today, like we said, we had the Caiso Cures Inc., a cultural youth workshop, and please look out for that. The website rather is www.WeCaisoInc. WeSoCaiso.com. Some of the news we're looking at locally here in the Virgin Islands, so you could take this with you and analyze that when you go forward. There was a Senate hearing yesterday on the health department. The $45 million of unauthorized funding utilized by the Bryan administration was also at Tuesday's budgeted appropriations. The taxicab offices in Thomas is finally reopening. And down in Butler Bay in Frederick said they're actually doing a coral nursery to try to restore brain corals in the Virgin Islands. And this is interesting. I just saw it come up. What used to be the old police station in St. Thomas, or rather in Christiansted, is Mary Dima and her group at VIAC is about to start rebuilding that up. So that's the old barracks. Thank you again.
The opinions expressed on Analyze
thank you
This
again.
are entirely those of the on-air participants and do not reflect those of the station's board, management, staff, or underwriters.